In this video, we're going to review the unit circle again. Alright, so it says be comfortable with the unit circle. That's really what we're doing in this video. Alright, so let's review how to put together the complete unit circle. We kind of do it in stages. Alright, so we start with our blank unit circle. We need to fill in all these angles with the degrees, all these blanks, these are the angles in radians, and then all the points along the outside. So we kind of have three different types of information we need to fill in. Alright, so the first thing I'm always going to recommend you start with is the first quadrant. Alright, so the points out here are, because it's a unit circle radius 1, so we just go 1 to the right, 1 up, 1 left, 1 down, you get these 4. And then quadrant 1 is just what you have to have memorized, 30, 45, 60 for my angles. And then these values, alright, how can you, like this one, pretty much no one gets wrong because it's in the middle and they're the same. But a lot of times people switch these two on accident. Alright, so there's a couple different ways that I've learned to kind of make sure I get those ones right. First way is, if you have this actual like graph here, or this picture, if you look at 1/2 on the x-axis, this is 0, this is 1. 1/2 is about here, and you can see that lines up with x value being 1/2. Y 1/2 is between 0 and 1, that's about there. And you can see that lines up, pretty much, if I drew it correctly, where y is 1/2. Alright, so that's one way visually how you can get 1/2. Alright, the other way is square root of 3 over 2. If you put it in the calculator, it's about 0.8. Square root of 2 over 2 is about 0.7. And 1/2 is 0.5. Alright, so if you kind of know these decimal approximations, you'll start at 1, then you go to the next bigger value, the next bigger value, the next bigger value, and then you end up at 0. So you're kind of working your way down, and then, of course, the y values are the opposite. They start high here, next bigger value, next bigger value, next bigger value, 0. Alright, so there's all these different ways you can help remember quadrant 1, whichever works for you. Again, normally I give 2 or 3 ways and students come up with their own ways, or whatever you need to do to remember quadrant 1, just do that. I figure on the rest of the angles is pretty straightforward. We know these big gaps near the axes, these are all 30 degrees, and these little gaps in the middle are all 15 degrees. All right, so you're just adding 0, 30, 15, 15. If you just add up as you go around, you'll get all these angles. All right, next is just kind of using these values in quadrant 1 to get the other ones. All right, just remember that x is negative here. All right, so I just put a negative sign in front of the value. Y is negative here. All right, so I put a negative in front of the y value, and both are negative here. All right, so they both have negatives. But other than that, I'm just going straight across, straight down, straight across. All right, so it creates this box here where they all have the same values, but I just put the negatives in the right place. Then I do the exact same thing with my middle. Go straight across, straight down, straight across. Okay, that box, again, just negatives in the right place. And last one, straight across, straight down, straight across. All right, just making sure the negatives are in the right place. All right, so now we have our kind of completed circle we learned first, and now we just need to add in those radian measures. All right, they all are based off the denominator of the angle. All right, so first we're going to fill in quadrant 1, all right, with our radian angles. And again, you could convert these. These are ones you basically should have memorized. Radians are a little bit weird because they're almost in reverse. You start off with the bigger one and you work your way to the smaller one. All right, remembering pi and pi over 2 will kind of help you remember that this actually goes down to the smaller one, because it wouldn't make sense for this to be 2, 6, 4, 3. Kind of big. Not make sense. I put 6, 4, 3, 2. Right, they're going down as you go across. And then just like our points of just kind of going straight across, the denominators are going to stay the same. So over 3 and over 3, over 4, over 4, over 6, over 6. So those are also related. And the only difference is the numerator. In quadrant 2, we just take the bottom minus 1. So 6 minus 1 is 5, 4 minus 1 is 3, 3 minus 1 is 2. In quadrant 3, we take the bottom plus 1. And again, I know they're in the right place because they just line up going straight down the over 6s, straight down the over 4s, straight down the over 3s. Take that bottom and add 1. And the last quadrant is the 2 times the bottom minus 1. So 6 minus 1, 8 minus 1, 12 minus 1. Again, I know they're in the right place because they line up with the other over 3s. These line up with the other over 4s. These line up with the other over 6s. So there's a lot of like straight line symmetry in the unit circle. All right, so let's do it all one more time. Again, if you're comfortable with it, you don't have to watch this part, but I'm going to kind of go through the whole thing the way I would do it. And this is pretty much the way I grade it too. So I'm going to start off with the angles. This is 0, add 30, add 15, add 15, add 30, add 30, add 15, add 15, add 30, add 30, 15, 15, 30, 30, 15, 15, 30. Right, so those are all my angles in degrees. Now I want to start filling in the points. All right, the one thing that I always do is fill in these points. So this is where x is 1, where y is 1, this is where x is -1, this is where y is -1. Then I'm going to start off with quadrant 1. All right, so 1 goes to the next biggest value, which is the square root of 3 over 2. Goes to the square root of 2 over 2. Goes to the smallest value, 1/2. Coming down the opposite way, these all just switch. Like that. And then I'm going to go straight across for all these values. So I'm going to go straight across here, square root of 3 over 2, 1/2. Straight down, straight across. Do the same thing for the square root of 2 ones, straight across. Straight across. And lastly, for the 1/2 ones, straight across, straight down, straight across. And generally, I wouldn't do it exactly the way I would have put in the negative signs, but just to show like they're all the same values, and then I just go through and put negative for x here, negative for them both here, negative for y there. And so I got the negatives in the right place, got all the values in the right place. Now the outside of my unit circle is done. The last thing I need to do is fill in the radian angles. Start at 0, pi over 6. I think these ones I pretty much just have memorized. Pi over 4, pi over 3, pi over 2. Right. In quadrant 2, I'm going to go straight across, and I'm just going to add 1 to the bottom. So 3 plus 1 is 2. 4 minus 1 is 3. I think I said plus. 6 minus 1 is 5. Quadrant 3, and this is pi because it's half of a circle. Quadrant 3, I'm just going to add 1, so 6 plus 1 is 7. And I know that goes here because it lines up. 4 plus 1 is 5. 3 plus 1 is 4. And then going across, this is, again, 2 plus 1 is 3. And going across here, double and subtract. So 3 doubled is 6, minus 1 is 5. 8 minus 1 is 7. 12 minus 1 is 11. Going all the way around, I've gotten to 2 pi. Okay, so that's the way I do it. When I'm grading this, to kind of show you how I grade it, I literally just go around the degrees, make sure they all make sense. Look at the radians in my head, subtract 1, add 1, double and subtract 1. All right, so literally exactly what I said. For the points, I really make sure these ones are right, and I just use my finger, and I just kind of trace across, make sure that's the same point, make sure that's the same point, make sure that's the same point. Then I use my finger, and I trace across, make sure that all these ones are square root of 2 over 2 ones, and then trace across, make sure all these ones are the ones that start with 1/2. And then just check the negatives. So that's literally exactly how I grade it. Check the degrees, check the radians, making sure that the subtractions are correct, and then check the points by just dragging my finger across the page, all right, to make sure they all line up correctly. All right, but again, you've done this a few times already. All right, focus on quadrant 1 first. Get those special angles in the right values in the right place, using whichever method you want to do. And then this skill check is kind of the difficult part. You can use this for your next skill check.